Hi there, and welcome to this presentation, Working from Home During COVID, produced for Fingal County Council Libraries Work Matters programme. My name is Jill Barrett. I have a business called The Head Coach, and I engage in transformational coaching. That is quite simply coaching clients to think and act differently to get better outcomes for themselves in their personal and professional lives. So today the topic is working from home during COVID. And if you haven't seen my other two videos for the Work Matters program, you might also like to check out Diversifying Your Career and Job Hunting During COVID. That's available on the Fingal Libraries YouTube channel, where maybe you found this video, and there's a range of great content from other presenters there and some of the Fingal team in the library as well. So do check that out. Today, I'm going to bring you a few insights, which I hope will be useful in terms of helping you to manage working from home a little bit better. Undoubtedly, some of them you'll already have thought of yourself, but hopefully there's a little bit of food for thought here. And even it's good to feel supported and feel like, you know, you're experiencing the same as other people, even though what that is may be challenging you to the nth degree. So in a few moments, I'm going to share some slides with you. But just as a caveat to all this, I think it's quite interesting. Recently, we heard on the news, somebody was talking about, you know, this is not homeschooling. They were talking about educating their children at home. They were saying this is emergency education. So of course, remote working, you know, for us at the moment is not, for most of us, it's not a choice, it's an obligation. We just have to work from home. This pandemic has thrown us into that situation. So that nice, you know, cozy idea that we are engaging in remote working, which some of us will have done up to this point by choice, but many of us, we were not expecting that in, you know, early March of 2020, that by later that month, we would be all pretty much incarcerated in our homes and having to manage our workspace and all the children, if we have children, our family life, caring responsibilities, or if we're by ourselves, you know, the challenge of going from a very social environment to coming into a very quiet space. Now, some people that might suit, but for a lot of us, it's been very challenging. So every situation, potentially in terms of home working, can throw up challenges for you. So with that in mind, you know, that if homeschooling is emergency education, then remote working at the moment for most of us is having to work from a space that was never designed, and let's face it, to be a workspace or somewhere where we would house our professional lives. We were quite happy, many of us, to keep that separate, and for good reason. And we just, as we start this video, are reminded that if you feel that your employer has obligations to you that are not being met in terms of what's provided to you to support you in working at home, of course you need to contact them directly and have a bit of dialogue and a bit of conversation around that. So we're not going to get into that today. We're just going to talk about the tools and tips that you can use to practically help yourself and support yourself in working from home. So I'm going to share my slides with you now. And in that, again, I am just going to give you a couple of tips. And who knows, you may have already thought of a lot of these. But hopefully, again, a couple of nuggets that you'll be able to take away from our session today. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is mindset. The second is the environment around you. And the third are habits and discipline. And all of these play a pivotal part in supporting you to work and thrive, not just survive, but thrive in your home working space. So first up, mindset, really important to look at that. And part of mindset, you know, I'm not going to talk immediately about positive psychology and lots of tools and tips to get you into that good space. I'm going to talk about a really important thing that I feel, if you haven't done already, you should really try to tap into and start engaging with. And that is quite simply the emotion that you're experiencing around being in this situation. A term I use with my own clients is hippopotamizing. What do I mean by hippopotamizing? It is quite simply, as these lovely animals are doing, allowing yourself to wallow in the muck. I mean, just in terms of all of the emotions, as horrible as you might feel they are to you to experience, the grief, the anger, still a bit of shock perhaps with every lockdown. Here we go again, a sense of, futility, worry about vaccines, worry about relatives, all of those sort of things. Have you allowed yourself to really feel that? Maybe you're worried that if you do, it'll get out of control. But a guy called Peter A. Levine, Dr. Peter A. Levine, he did some studies around what's called somatic experiencing. And he started out doing some research into animals in the wild. And he realized that animals have a very primitive response to an event, which is like causes fight, flight, or freeze. So perhaps they're being chased, or they might eventually be attacked. And if they get away from the whatever's chasing them, and they, evade the attack, or even if they've escaped just having been attacked, they will go away to a quiet space, like an antelope, for example. They'll go away to a quiet space, cave, under a shady trees, into a bush. They'll lie down, they'll curl up in a ball, and they will rest. They will allow their bodies to rest. And then inevitably, an involuntary shaking or twitching will start. And that's all of the tension being released from their body. Because events of themselves are not necessarily what caused the trauma. The trauma comes after. Okay, so the trauma is experienced after the event. And if we dismiss it, and if we adopt the get up and get on with it, now sometimes we have to do that, absolutely. But it is important to revisit the emotional side of the trauma so that we can allow ourselves to really feel it and to release the tension from our body, however we do that. For some of us, it's crying. Some of us might get a bit angry. Obviously, release your emotion in a healthy way, in a safe way. But do allow yourself a little bit of hippopotamizing. It is important for your long-term health and well-being going forward. If you carry on with this, I must be strong, I must, keep going, without giving yourself that TLC phase, the chances are it's going to come back to bite you later on. And that's, tension trapped in your body. You don't want that. It's going to manifest itself in physical or mental ill health later on. So try and find good ways to release that. Then the other parts of mindset, of course, the positive psychology is important. Once you come out of that hippopotamizing stage, we're not going to stay in that forever, just as long as it's healthy to do so. Think about 3 things. I've spoken about them before. What can you control in the situation? What can you influence? And what do you simply have to accept? So you cannot control, perhaps, the people that are in your surrounding environment, the place you're living, the fact that you don't have a garden or you don't have a balcony. But what can you influence? So you can influence, and we're going to look at environment next. You can influence the immediate space around you. You can also attempt, at least, to influence, the people around you. So whilst you can't control them, wouldn't it be lovely if the family are wrecking your head, that you could just ask them to go to a room and they just go in and stay there, and you could say, right, that's it. I have this whole space to myself to be, quiet and concentrate and get down to my work. It doesn't work like that. But what you may be able to do in terms of influencing that is negotiating time. Probably find you're doing a lot of that already. Negotiating time on laptops, negotiating time in the, for the TV, whatever happens to be. We all are negotiating who does the different chores now that we're all home together. We have to share them out. And some things you're just going to have to accept, so that's winning the battle with yourself and what's going on in your head. You might be absolutely adamant and so angry about things, but is it getting you anywhere? No, it's probably just riling you up, making you more stressed. So what do you actually have to accept? And just isolating what those 3 things are, or 3 sets of things are. What can you control? What can you influence? And what can you accept? So the CIA, it's not a United States intelligence agency. It is a nice acronym for trying to get a little bit of a handle back on what's going on in your workplace, which is your home space. And the third thing is contracting. So I have a sample contract here. And that is also part of this influencing piece that we've just spoken of. So the first is a contract with yourself. And I'm going to be talking about habits and discipline very shortly. And you're going to contract with yourself that you're going to look after yourself. You may contract with yourself that you are going to, get up at a time in the morning, have a shower, have a little bit of meditation time. Whatever your contract is, you're going to make that with yourself. They always say on an airline, in this part of the safety announcement, you put on your own oxygen mask first. Those of you who are watching this and are caring for people at home, particularly, or in that sort of caring environment, and that is what you have to do. Always remember, you do need some time where possible, even if you're a single parent, or perhaps a sibling or peer, with somebody to look after, and you're the only person you feel you're the only person with the responsibility to do that. Think about, is there anybody in your environment, outside your house, in your network, that could give you a little bit of a dig out from time to time? Just think about it. Very often the people are there, they want to help you, but you don't ask. So thinking about that space. So contract to look after yourself. The second is contracting with other people, around your downtime, your work time, if you're having a bad day scenario. A contract is something that we draw up, albeit an informal one, just to say, look, this is how we're going to manage this. Let's all work together as a family. If you're by yourself, well, you're just contracting with yourself, or maybe you're sharing a house with a flatmate or something, work it out in advance. Always a good idea, if we're going to be together working on anything and working in a space, the same space, to have a little bit of an agreement or protocol as to how we're going to manage that. The second thing I'm going to look at today is environment. This is a lovely image. I love to stay in a place called Bracken Cottage in Parkmore. It's Parkmore Pier in Durras, near Convara, County Galway. It's on the border between Galway and Clare, and it's a really special place. And this isn't sunset, this is sunrise. So when you look out the window of this B&B, this is what you see in the morning. The ships and the yachts moored in the pier, off the pier, a lovely beach with the sea, less than 50 meters from your window, and this beautiful sunrise. And the environment and the space that you're working in for home working, you need to make it as pleasant as possible. So I have this as my screensaver, for example. Ideally, if you have a window, face the window. So these are the practical things. Face the window. If you're not facing a window, or if you have, hopefully you're not working in some sort of a cupboard, but ideally a little bit of natural light. But if you can't face the window, then it's a nice idea to place mirrors around that reflect the light from the window back onto your workspace. Okay, so you can put that behind your desk, for example, so that the reflection from the light coming in the window is reflected onto you. It brightens your face for presentations such as this, or Zoom calls, MS Teams calls, but also it adds a little bit of light to your day. And the second thing you can do, buy some plants. If you kill every plant that you've ever looked after, you can buy fake plants, really cheap. And you're thinking, where will I get them? Well, you can buy them online, or if you can get into some of the DIY stores, which you're probably not supposed to buy, the aisles might be blocked off. But if they're not, maybe that's an essential thing for your mental health. Buy a couple of plants, real or fake. And the other thing you can do is maybe put up some pictures, some stencils, get your kids to draw some drawings. Now, you might just want to escape for your kids, so this might be an escape for you, but you can put things that are pleasant around your workspace, anything that reminds you of something nice. I have behind my laptop here, I have a long postcard with a feature of a place I went on holidays in West Cork years ago. I have a picture of my sister and myself in a nice frame. I did sail training at one point during my life, little badge to remind me of that. It was one of the most positive things I ever did in my life. So put things around your workspace that lift you. I heard of somebody working off their ironing board. That was very early in pandemic. I hope at this stage she's got a little fold-up table from somewhere. You can buy them. They are inexpensive. And you can, that's great, because it means you have a little desk that you can work from, and also you can just put it away at the end of the day. The other thing that you might do in terms of your environment, you might put up some inspirational quotes around your desk. You know, I will get through this. You know, life is challenging, but you know, it is what I make it. Whatever will motivate you. Okay, so nice inspirational quotes. And something else you can do, very practical, if you're not on calls or whatever, is you can leave a little background music playing, whatever you enjoy. You know, whatever will either lift your mood or calm you, whatever you need, you can leave it running in the background on your laptop or on a device beside you. So lots of little practical things that you can do to help yourself. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is habits and discipline. And that is really one of the most important things. I don't have to credit this image because I just took a photograph of my alarm clock at home. When somebody gave out to me for using my phone as an alarm clock, they said, you need a proper alarm clock to get you out of bed in the morning. So I bought this fella. And this is just to remind us to commit to engaging in healthy habits. They say first we form habits and then habits form us. And habits are quite simply actions or rituals that you think that you perform over and over and over again. Healthy habits are great. They're what keep us going. They're what keep our mental and physical well-being, you know, boosted and sustained and maintained. And negative habits and unhealthy habits are the ones that bring us down. So thinking about the habits that you have, thinking about the ones that you could engage in to help you have a more harmonious environment. So it could be just the simple habit of getting up at a particular time every day, doing a particular workout, or even for some people, it's getting dressed and having a shower. If you were working in a building and you had to commute into, you know, your organization that you're working in, you would be doing that anyway. You wouldn't dream of going in, you know, on public transport or driving in your PJs, not having washed, you know. So for some of us, it's about getting back into the habit of doing that. Those of us that work for ourselves, either partly or fully, it's always a challenge when you start working for yourself first, because things are a bit chaotic. You don't have that structure around you. So you have to get into the habit of doing all the things that you would normally do at the time in the morning that you would have done when you were working, just to keep yourself disciplined. And obviously, you know, any habit and ritual that you engage in will get stronger and stronger and stronger the more you do it. It's like a muscle. So if you say, I'm going to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, that will cement itself in your life. And that part of your brain that's expecting that to happen and driving that to happen will be reinforced, and you'll start to feel better for it. So just to give you an example, and this is not, you know, a recommended list for you because you decide what you need to do in the morning, but just to give you an idea of what I do in the morning. This is my morning ritual. So when I wake up, and I always set 3 alarms quite close together in case I sleep it out. But when I wake up, the first thing I do is, as I'm just lying in the bed, diaphragmatic breathing. That's belly breathing. I breathe in for 5, I hold for about 6 or 7, and then I breathe out for 10. And I do that, if I can get to 10, I'm doing well, without my mind wandering off about 50,000 times. But when I find the mind wandering off, I just come back. You know, so it's come back to the breath. It's a mindfulness exercise. The second thing I do is, and I'm not particularly religious, but I am sort of spiritual. So I say a prayer, and then I pray individually and in families for people that I really want to give prayers to, either, you know, good friends and all my family, but also people that I know are struggling either with illness or poor health or physical or mental health. And also, you know, I also pray for people that I'm challenged by at that moment, and who are maybe challenged by me, because that's all part of a sort of a compassion cycle. Okay. And I do my best with that every morning. Okay. And the third thing that I do is a little bit of stretching in the bed. So I have, you know, some injuries and that I sustained a couple of years ago in particular. And I just like to get into the habit of stretching to help get into the day as a result of, you know, those injuries. I can be stiff, I can be sore. So the stretching helps. And I do that in the bed. And then what I do is I switch on the phone properly and I put on some music and I get out of the bed and I do a quick, what I call a HIIT exercise, okay, which is basically just aerobic exercises, which I do over and over again for about a cycle of 3 rounds. And I instantly feel energized, okay, and they're very simple exercises. So even if you have, you know, a disability where you can't move many parts of your body, whatever you can move, okay, whatever you can move, be it your head, your eyes, you know, your mouth, you know, whatever part of your body you can move, get it moving. It gets your energy going, it gets your heart rate up, you know, the blood is pumping around your body, you start to feel much warmer, much more energetic, whatever you can manage. And something else I do before I get out of the bed and before I do that is I do a guided meditation if I can. Tara Brach, I've recommended before. She has lovely meditations of all lengths. I do either a 1 minute or a 5 minute or longer if I have time, but usually I'm onto that third ring of the alarm clock. So it is time to actually get up and get going. And the last thing I do before I start my working day is I have my porridge. And you might think, gosh, that's a bit of a boring breakfast, but I would reckon that 360 days of the 365 days of the year, I have porridge for breakfast with seeds and nuts and fruit and sometimes an egg thrown into it, whatever I can think of. That's my healthy breakfast. And I look forward to that intensely every morning because I'm a bit of a foodie and I like my food. So what are your disciplines? What are your habits? You know, or what's your habits? And then the discipline is engaging them and doing so regularly until they become habits and you can never remember a time that you didn't do them. And you might be thinking, oh, rubbish. I have 3 kids. I have somebody I have to look after. I have, you know, my partner is working and, you know, all the responsibilities on me. I don't have time for these things. And of course, we do have time. We just choose not to make the time. Some of us definitely are more pressurized than others. Of that, I am absolutely certain. But for many of us, we know, our inner truth knows that we're just choosing to do something else instead of looking after ourselves. So setting aside a time to do whatever it is, engage in whatever habits. You can be drying your hair and doing squats and lunges at the same time. When you're taking your calls, at work, when you get to your workspace, your office, your kitchen table or whatever, you can stand up instead of sitting down. Or you can do a couple of exercises when you're on the call, or if you're in a training course or you're at a meeting and you don't have to have your video on, you can do your exercises while you're listening. In the morning, if you're saying, well, the kids run in and they're just climbing all over me or us in the bed, you know what I mean, can't get rid of them and they just want our attention, why not try a little meditation? Lie on the floor, lie on the bed, put the meditation, the guided meditation on, encourage them to do it too. And you're going, are you kidding me? They'll never buy it. You know what I mean? They're never going to settle down to do that. Why don't you just try it? Before we make up our mind, as the mantra goes, open it. Let's try things that are beneficial to us. And other things that you might be thinking of is, you know, you might say, I can't get out to get exercise. If you don't have a balcony, you know, if you don't have a garden, then it might be simply arranging to take a call, a work call, down the street for a couple of minutes, around the block, around the shared space in the apartments, whatever it happens to be, but trying to get yourself up and out, get yourself moving and getting away from that space. And so that's my tips, I suppose, for what they're worth for today around home working. And one of the other things I'm thinking about that you could engage in that I think is really a lovely idea, and I've started to do it for myself, is what I call a vision board. And the vision board is simply having a board somewhere with anything you want to put on it. And if you have people around you, either family or friends that you're living with or housemates, why not get them to engage in it too? Ideally somewhere that you can see it from your workplace, but if not, just somewhere in your home. And that is all the things, you write them down, or, you know, if you buy magazines or you have a printer, download it off the web, print out or post up all of the things that you're going to do when this pandemic is over. You know, who are you going to see? What are you going to do? Are you going to eat out in restaurants? Are you going to go on your holidays? Are you just looking forward to maybe going back to your job? Whatever it happens to be, think about the big picture. What we need the most in life is hope, and we need optimism for the future. And a vision board will help you to keep your mind on the prize, to keep your mind on a vision and a goal for the future while we're working through this difficult time that we're all having to be part of. So that is my session for today, and hope you enjoyed this one on working from home during COVID. Don't forget, as I say, to check out lots of great content on Fingal Library's YouTube channel, including my other videos called Diversifying Your Career and Job Hunting During COVID. And looking forward to seeing you next time.